Hey everyone, my name is Steven and welcome back to the Storytime channel. Without wasting any time, let's get into our stories of the day. No problem, I'll print that video for you, and while I'm at it, I might have you fired as well. Context: this happened a few years ago. I was 18 and working as a receptionist for a community nursing service. As the youngest in the team by a long shot, the average age of employers being around 55 to 60, I was usually the one responsible for the computer stuff. Mostly just simple things. Nothing a quick Google couldn't solve. The other staff members were wonderful and I learned a lot from working with them. Except for the assistant manager, Karen. This woman was the bane of my existence. She was 75 plus, recently came out of a 15-year retirement as a receptionist, and was armed with a certificate in business management from a 4-hour online course. She refused to use basic computer skills such as Word or email, stating that she didn't need to learn them again when she had others to do it for her, namely me. In a 5-hour shift, I would spend 3 hours just fielding her tasks. Needless to say, this came along with all the fun personality traits that make a manager from heck. Malicious compliance. At the start of my shift, I receive an email from Karen asking me to print the attached files. One was a PDF and the other an MP4. So, assuming she meant just the PDF, I take the printed copy to her. This is roughly how the exchange went. "Why do you only have one file? I sent 2. "You want me to print an MP4? "Isn't that what I asked? A monkey could do your job, and probably better at that." Here, I'm pretty sure she laughed at her own joke. Me, desperate. "Look, I don't think you understand. Don't try and teach me. Don't forget I did your job for 20 years and now I could have you fired." Already over it and ready for some malicious compliance, me. "Okay, well, I've never printed this type of file before, so it might take a while." Karen interrupts. "I don't care how long it takes. I'm your boss and I've told you to do this. Once it's done, you can move on to the other jobs." I'm grinning ear to ear at this point. I get back to my desk and send her an email summarizing our conversation and explicitly clarifying she wanted me to print an MP4, to which I got a snarky reply. Perfect. I spent the next 4 to 5 hours pausing the video every 2 to 3 frames, screenshotting it, pasting it to a Word document, and printing. The administrative tasks piled up. Not that Karen noticed because she mostly spent her time reading magazines or talking on the phone. I felt bad as this placed an extra load on the other receptionists. However, since Karen was universally hated, they gave me their blessings. Once complete, I took about 100 pages carefully held with clips to her desk and sweetly told her that I'd printed the other file. She looked smug until she saw what was in front of her. Page after page of almost the same picture as the man moves through the video. Some slightly blurry, all in full color. She was furious, to say the least. But I was 1 hour overtime on my shift, and Karen knew that would already cause her some issues, so she let me leave. Though I knew it wasn't over yet. As expected, I get called into HR for a meeting the following week, where they accused me of wasting company time and not complying with management. I explained the situation in detail and showed them the email, including her awful reply. I also showed them a few more emails and texts where Karen used some particularly descriptive words to insult our staff members, including the very HR rep taking my interview. Turns out, this was the straw that broke the camel's back, as Karen had multiple reports against her from other staff members, and she had been driving HR insane with her own complaints. She lost her job the following week. The best part is that this happened on a Sunday where I got double pay. I took some of that sweet overtime cash and brought in cupcakes to work once Karen was gone. I said it was an end of a week treat, but we all knew what we were celebrating. The HR rep seemed to particularly enjoy hers. So if you were OP and your assistant manager Karen tells you to print an MP4 file, which is a video file, what would you do? What would be your next step? Let me know what your creative solution would be in the comments below. "Do a chargeback then, you won't get a refund." "Okay, I will." A couple of years ago, I ordered an express parcel delivery from the UK to the USA via one of these third-party parcel shipping companies. For those who are unfamiliar, they are a middleman and they hold huge accounts with UPS, DHL, FedEx, etc. They then offer cheaper parcel rates and pass some of the discount onto the customer. So I ordered an express 48-hour delivery with one of these delivery companies for my 2 parcels to the USA. This cost me around £100 for the 2 boxes, and from experience using this delivery company in the past, they have a delivery guarantee which offers me a full refund of all carriage charges if any part of the shipment is not delivered within 48 hours. A few days later, I was told by my customer that the boxes had arrived 2 days late. Not a problem. I checked the tracking number and it had been held up at the UK-based air freight terminal, which entitled me to a full refund of the carriage charges. I then contacted the delivery company, but I was told that although I was fully entitled to a full refund, I'd have to speak to the third-party shipping company. I contacted them by phone and I was told that they don't issue refunds for delayed parcels. I explained that this was a guaranteed service and the delivery company said that I was entitled to a refund. At this point, I was passed on to a manager by the call center operative without even asking. The manager was very obnoxious and wasn't bothered that my parcel had been delayed. In his opinion, I shouldn't expect it to get there on time when I had paid such a low price. So you want a full refund just because your parcel is delayed? Yes, I do, because that is what is in the terms and conditions. But you didn't buy the extra insurance. No, I didn't, because the delivery already included £1,000 of insurance anyway. Well, we don't do refunds for delayed parcels, and especially if you haven't paid for the insurance. At this point, I was getting pretty annoyed because he was making up this idea of buying insurance to cover for delays. The insurance only covered total loss and damage anyway. So I explained that if I didn't receive a refund, I would simply initiate a chargeback on my credit card for the payment. At this point, he raised his voice and told me, "Fine, try to do a chargeback then. We will fight it and you won't get a refund. Yeah, your parcel was late, but that doesn't mean you get a free delivery." I ended the call and got straight on the phone to my credit card company. They went through a rigorous process with me and asked for a copy of the original invoice, the terms and conditions, etc. Within 24 hours, they'd refunded the full amount back to my card and sent me a letter giving me the reasons they found the chargeback in my favor. It also explained that the merchant, the shipping company, had 30 days to contest the chargeback. However, 30 days came and went and the money was still showing as refunded. 6 weeks later, I received an email from their customer service team telling me that they were willing to give me a partial refund of 10% to compensate me for the delay. Obviously, somebody hadn't realized that I'd initiated a chargeback and now it was too late. So I replied and politely explained that I was told by the manager, stating his name, to initiate a chargeback because their company doesn't issue refunds, even when their terms and conditions say they do. Therefore, as far as I was concerned, the matter was now closed as my credit card company had given them 30 days to reply to the chargeback, and they had not replied, therefore the chargeback was granted. Not only did I never hear anything back from them, but I haven't used this company since. I'm gonna be honest, I halfway expected OP to start saying that they took the 10%, but could that have been some kind of underhanded play by the company for more legal recourse? I don't know. Obviously, the right thing to do is not take it. You don't know what you're talking about. Just use what I tell you to. A few years ago, I was working for a company building a specialized electrical switch room for some plant somewhere. The important part to know is that this room had to be fire rated for 4 hours. So if the room was engulfed in fire up to 900 degrees Celsius for 4 hours, it wouldn't be breached. The guy running this job was a complete tosspot. In his own words, he was a tradesman, an accountant, an engineer, a truck driver, and had decades of experience. His job title was, quotes, estimator. Now, the client had spec'd a very specific sealant to be used to seal all of the joints in the room between where the panels join to one another, and Tosspot had to order the stuff from Germany. And who would have guessed he didn't order enough? We ran out 2/3 of the way through the fit out, so he goes down to the local hardware store to get some more. What he came back with was regular heat-resistant silicone. The stuff you'd use to glue an oven door seal that's only rated to 240 degrees Celsius. Not only that, the stuff he got is bright red, while the specialized sealant is gray. So it sticks out like dog's balls that it isn't the right stuff just by looking at it. But when I pointed it out to him, he said, "Just use it. I know what I'm doing and you're only paid from the neck down." So we did what we were told. We squeezed the stuff in nice and thick, sealing the wall panels to the floor. Now this was very early on in the process of building this room. After sealing the walls, another 1,000 odd hours of labor went into installing a few more layers of heat-resistant flooring, insulation, doors, high-voltage electrical cabinets, and the like. Everything glued, welded, or otherwise bonded together in a way that's impossible to take apart non-destructively. When the room was finished, the client sent out a few engineers from Japan to do the final ITP, inspection and test procedure. And of course, they picked up on the fact that some of the sealant wasn't this fancy stuff from Germany. "What sealant is that? We gave you a spec'd product to use. Where's the information on the sealant?" the engineer says. Suffice to say, we then spend the next 3 months disassembling, more like demolishing, the room, reordering all of the materials, none of which are cheap or off the shelf, over $150,000 worth in total, and rebuilding the room to spec. Tosspot was fired, of course. For somebody who said they have decades of experience, that's a shocking amount of blatant disregard for regulation. No paid overtime without a project. Happened about 5 years ago. In my company, we have to write up our hours and write up which project they are for. Of course, there is always some stuff to do that is not part of a customer's project. We also have nothing like an union. We could create one, but similar companies with one mostly have worse conditions than we have, so no need to unionize for us. At that time, once a year, we had a gathering of the whole company to do the necessary QM courses to get a necessary certificate and to get important information, mostly on administrative stuff. That year, at the end of the gathering, we got informed that overtime without a customer project to pay for it will no longer be allowed or paid. This made most of us unhappy, because most of the stuff outside of the projects was stuff the company forced us to do for QM reasons, or to make the jobs of the billing department that worked totally without projects easier. We had some discussions, but management was clear. No overtime outside of projects that can be billed to a customer. They then ended the official part. The gathering was in a rented location since our HQ was too small to fit all employees in. A lot of guys working outside. Part of the cheap price for renting was a deal to clean up the place in the end or pay a strangely high price for the cleaning. So in the end, a manager, let's call him Mike, asked everyone to carry chairs and tables back into the storage and help sweeping the floor. Would have been very fast if everyone took his own chair. That is where the malicious compliance kicked in. This gathering was a non-project activity and our daily work time was over. One of the engineers, let's call him Def, asked loud so everyone could hear it, "On what project will this go?" "This is no project." "Well, we have been here from start time till now, so our daily work time is full and you just made clear we are not allowed to do overtime outside of a project, or did I get you wrong?" "We made that clear, no overtime outside of projects." "Then I cannot help you cleaning. That would be overtime outside of a project and you do not allow that. Sorry." Mike in silence. Dev stood up and went out. Next, half of the other engineers stood up and started to go, followed by the rest, the technicians and most other employees, and in the end, every one of the employees who worked on projects went out. Only managers and the people from billing and accounting were left and had to clean up everything alone. Rumors are it took them 1 to 2 hours. Fallout and aftermath. Next week, all employees got an email informing them, when you only work off project one day, the non-project overtime should be clocked in on the next day, and the project work of that day will be the paid overtime. Management did not punish Def or anyone else, and it was again a good place to work. Most of the time. Edit additional info. The not project time clocked the next day is not billed to the customer. It stays non-project. And overtime does not make a higher price for the customer, only the amount of hours on project counts. This rule just ensures there are less than 8 hours on one day that cannot be billed to a customer, but have to be paid to the employee. No extra costs for customers. I'm with Def on this one for sure. You tell me any overtime will not be paid unless it's specifically for a project, and then expect me to do all this extra work for you on off hours right afterwards? Not really gonna fly. But with that said, that's all the stories we have for today, so what I want to know is which of these stories are your personal favorite and why? Let me know which story was the most interesting to you in the comments below. And thank you all so much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and don't forget to turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. Thank you all again for watching and listening to the Storytime channel.